Hi, and welcome to a chat with Tedra Cobb, the Democratic candidate for United States Congress 21st District, who is running against incumbent Elise Stefanik. I'm Jared Stam, editor at Manchester Media, and today I'm being joined by our publisher and owner Mark Vinciguerra, and our reporters Jay Mullen and Austin Crozier. We're happy to be sitting down together via Zoom to discuss the issues facing the residents of the 21st District and Ms. Cobb's positions and plans. Tedra, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here.
So let's get started. I'm going to ask the first question. Tedra, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you bring to the table that Elise Stefanik does not bring.
Sure. Well, I've lived in this community for over 30 years. I graduated from SUNY Potsdam, married my husband Scott, and together we raised our two children in Canton. And I've dedicated my life to public service in the community here. I've been a volunteer firefighter, a healthcare advocate, mom, and an educator. And I am in this race because of healthcare. I have my own story. I was a county legislator for 8 years, and I finished my term in 2010. I never thought I would run for office again. A career in politics was not what I envisioned for myself. But fast forward to 2015, my daughter Ada lost the ability to walk and to stand, and she needed emergency back surgery. And as you can imagine, that was terrifying as a parent. But we were lucky because I had insurance through my job. So Ada got the surgery that she needed. A month later, I lost my job and we lost our insurance. So in 2017, when Elise Stefanik voted again to repeal the Affordable Care Act and to kick 64,000 people off their health care, their insurance, and to eliminate protections for people with pre-existing conditions like my own daughter, Ada, that was it. I knew I had to run. Healthcare is my passion and my life's work. So I understand what it's like to fight for your child and for your family. And I'm going to fight for North Country families like I fought for my own.
All right, Tedra, Jay with the Whitehall Times. Would you talk about your history as a local entrepreneur and how you will use that experience to help build up the local economies of smaller towns like Whitehall and Granville?
Thank you for asking that question. Many people don't ask about my business. I actually started my own consulting business in 2003. I think I'm like a lot of Northern New Yorkers where I've had sometimes 2 and 3 jobs and started my consulting business. And during that time, I've actually had some other jobs to sort of make ends meet, right? So I understand what it's like to juggle those jobs, but my consulting business in particular is to help businesses thrive. So companies, whether they're for-profits or not for-profits, hire me to help them do what they do better. That's as simply put, right? So I go in and sometimes I do staff development training. So I train staff. I help them, companies with strategic planning. What are they doing well? What could they be doing better? How could they be more competitive? And I think this is really important, especially in this time with COVID, because we're facing lots of new challenges. We will be facing lots of new challenges. So of course you can imagine my business is on hold while I'm running for Congress, but I understand those challenges. I've worked with those, with companies and with employees, again, helping those organizations become stronger, be competitive, and to thrive in the North Country, which is sometimes a very tough environment.
Hi, Tedra. Austin Crozier. I write for the Granville Sentinel. My first question for you is the Second Amendment is taken very seriously in small upstate New York communities like Granville and Whitehall. Why should voters who are passionate about this subject vote for you, and what should they expect in terms of action?
Sure. So I think that we can protect responsible gun owners' rights. I think that's very important, while also making sure that we're protecting our communities. children want to be safe and feel safe going to school. Parents want to feel safe sending their children to school. So we know that the vast majority of Americans think that we should have universal background checks. We should close gun show loopholes, and we should pass red flag laws that keep our community safe. Red flag laws like in the Violence Against Women Act. Those are all things that I support. Those are all things that have bipartisan support and things that Elise Stefanik has voted against. Again, I think that we can protect responsible gun owners' rights while also protecting our communities. I'm going to work toward that.
I guess sort of a follow-up question that you pretty much already answered, but Elise has criticized you for wanting to ban guns and go against the Second Amendment. So could you just explain a little more fully that, your stance on gun control for our viewers and our readers?
Well, again, I think that we can protect responsible gun owners' rights. I don't want to take away people's guns, but I also want to make sure that we're balancing safety and the safety in our community. And that's why the vast majority of Americans think that we should have universal background checks, ban gun show loopholes, making sure that there are no loopholes, and then also making sure that we have red flag laws like in the Violence Against Women Act. Not only does the Violence Against Women Act protect women, but also families. And those are things, like I said, that I do support. The vast majority of Americans support those things. It's about making sure that we're protecting our community while also making sure that we're protecting the rights of Americans.
All right. So my next question for you, Tedra, is just what is your stance on police reform and the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, first, you might not know this, but I started my career working in the New York State prison system. And so I worked side by side with law enforcement. And so I want to be very clear, I don't support defunding the police. And I do, however, support some of the reforms that I think are important in terms of making sure that we're keeping people safe. And I think all of us support law enforcement. Making sure that we are banning chokeholds or strangleholds, banning no-knock warrants, having de-escalation and helping officers learn how to do de-escalation and techniques and the duty to intervene. Those are things that I think will help officers do their jobs better while also making our communities safer. With regard, if I could, just to what's happening in the country with regard to sort of civil rights and the rights of everyone to have a full life and have equal kind of protection under the law. I think that's something that we're facing. We saw it in the civil rights movement. We haven't quite finished the job, and I hope that this conversation will allow us to finish making sure that everybody feels equally and are equal in the United States.
All right, Tedra, explain your cradle to career pitch with education, whether it be through public schools and state universities or by attending a technical school. Why should the younger generation feel comfortable with Tedra Cobb as a representative in Congress?
So I think that we need to fund universal pre-K. We know that children who have an early education, whether it's through Head Start and then moving to pre-K. So I actually believe in funding Head Start programs and making sure that children have an equal and a strong footing from early age, from Head Start and then pre-K. So universal pre-K. One of the things that we see with school districts that struggle financially is that we are sometimes left behind. Some schools have pre-K, some schools don't have pre-K. And I think we should make it across the board that every child has universal pre-K, and that we're funding schools so that we can be competitive, that our children can be competitive, whether they choose to stay in Northern New York and go to a SUNY school or a trade school, or whether they leave and then hopefully come back. I'm one of those parents who, of course, one of my children went to a SUNY school. I went to a SUNY school. My daughter went to Cornell, and she was on the sort of the hybrid side. So we have lots of ways that people can learn and then bring their skills back. And that's always the goal, right? The goal is for us to train people here and have the jobs for the future. And this sort of gets back to the question about my business and being able to help organizations train the jobs for today, but also make sure that we're prepared for the jobs of the future. Some people might not want to go to college, but they might want to have an apprenticeship with a union, or go through a BOCES program and then be able to use that trade, or a nursing school and be able to use those skills. So again, I think it's really important that we offer that education. And this is the beautiful thing about this district. We have so many opportunities for education, but it also means that we need to invest in the funding for those. And we need to make sure that students aren't coming out with great gobs of debt and are able to buy a house and to be able to thrive in this community.
So I'm going to change direction here a little bit. Scenery and wildlife in upstate New York are beloved and consistent mainstays in our area. What are some examples of action that you've taken to enforce in the fields of climate change and the environment?
Well, I'll start with a little bit of a story. I actually, when I was in college, my first political activity in the community was to fight a garbage incinerator in St. Lawrence County. And I know that in the southern end of the district, there was a garbage incinerator that they were trying to fight against, and they lost that battle. So I became very involved in the environment and making sure that we had clean air and clean water. That actually led to my running for office as a county legislator about 10 years later. So I like to say I live my environmental values. I actually have had solar on my house since 1993. Fun fact, I lived off the grid for 11 years. And so again, I know when I talk about the environment, I want people to know that I'm committed to science. I believe in science-based decision-making. I believe that we need to fully fund the EPA. We need to make sure that their scientists, through things like the Scientific Integrity Act, that scientists can do the work that they do without political influence. I think we should end subsidies for fossil fuels. These are all things that I think that we can do and that we need action on quickly. There is no time to waste.
All right, Tedra. So my next question for you is, what does equality look like in upstate New York with Tedra Cobb as our Congresswoman?
Well, equality to me is not just about gender, although that is important, equal pay for equal work. It's also about the opportunity to thrive. So in other words, people who are financially stressed or who are, with income inequality, I think we need to work on that and making sure that the rich don't get huge tax breaks on the backs of the poor or lower or working families. So that's part of equality. I was a fierce fighter for marriage equality. And making sure that people have the right to marry people that they love and to be treated fairly under the law. You might not know this, but I did HIV and AIDS work throughout the 90s. And I saw the discrimination that happened to people who had HIV and the laws that were put in place to protect people so that we're not discriminating. So for me, again, it is the gamut of how we are or who we are as Americans, that each one of us, if each of us is not equal, then none of us is equal. And that is a principle that helps me make decisions and helps me look at governing and laws and working in our community to make it a better place, a place where everyone has the ability to thrive and to be their very best.
My next question for you, Tedra, is on your website, you say that you are an ally to the LGBTQ community, and you outline policy positions you would take if elected. Why is this issue important for you, and could you highlight some of the actions you would take as Congresswoman?
Well, I just spoke about working to make sure that we have marriage equality. What you might not know, well, I was going to say something about marriage equality in New York State, because this is really important. And I think it's really important, especially because we have maybe a hyper partisanship right now in Washington. But in this district, 3 Republican women from this district led marriage equality. Dee Dee Scosafava, Janet Dupre, and Teresa Sayward, all Republican women in the Democratic Assembly. I worked with people in my community for marriage equality, but also, again, did HIV and AIDS work. And my son was an educator. So this is sort of something that has been in my, when I said, I'm a community educator, I've done healthcare work and education. It all sort of, to me, is interwoven together. It's about everyone being treated equally and having equal access, again, under the law, and not discriminating against people. I believe in that people are whole people. And that's that's a value that I bring to every decision that I make, whether it was as a county legislator or whether it will be as a congresswoman.
Healthcare is a passion for you, always has been. And can you tell us about your plans for healthcare, both for the country and for this district?
So I believe the best way forward and the fastest way to increase access to healthcare is through a Medicare public option. So a Medicare public option simply means this, that people who want to can buy into Medicare, and people who want to keep their insurance are able to do that. It's really about choice and giving people the choice. And so I think, again, it's a way of expanding access quickly and making sure that more Americans have access to insurance and are covered, while also giving them the opportunity for choice. Now, I would like to also just sort of talk about something called healthcare parity, because I think we don't talk enough about this. If I break my arm, we're used to going to the doctor and the insurance companies understand a broken arm. Unfortunately, healthcare companies, insurance companies don't always treat mental illness or mental health the same way. They don't always cover it the same way. Or substance use disorder, and making sure that people are getting the help that they need when they're seeking addiction treatment services. These are also healthcare passions for me. Sometimes some of those are passions for me because of the work that I've done in my community, but also I'm not shy to say I have helped my own sibling get into a detox. I understand the barriers that were put in front of him. And in May of 2019, I was in that situation. I remember my brother sitting down and looking at a piece of paper that he had to sign in order to put himself into a detox, and he hesitated. And I asked, "Why are you hesitating? What's going on?" And he said, "It's expensive. It's $500 a day." And I said, "You have insurance." He got into that treatment center because of that insurance. Well, that very week, Elise Stefanik voted against health navigators, opioid addiction treatment navigators who would have helped families like my own, because I was able to help my brother. I could call on people that were healthcare people that I knew that could help me. But most families don't have that. And Elise Stefanik voted against that. And you asked earlier, what makes us different? Sometimes it's just the experience, this experience, and that I will be a fierce fighter for families because I understand what families go through every day.
Okay, Tedra, could you describe what it's like to see material that degrades you and your capabilities, and how do you respond to this and other types of adversity and negativity in your life?
So ask the beginning of the question again, because I didn't quite hear it. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Just if you could, describe what it's like to see material that degrades you and your capabilities.
Sure. I'm not sure if you're talking about the campaign and negative campaigning. Are you okay? So thank you. I was asked in the last cycle, we were all asked, candidates, not to lie about our opponents and to run a clean campaign. And I made that commitment. I will stick with that commitment. At the end of the day, it is about integrity and about who I am. So I think it's really important to run a race based on integrity. I want every person in this district to know who I am, why I'm running, and what I hope to do for the people in this district. And so seeing that negative campaigning to me is the worst of Washington. It's why people become disenfranchised. It's why they are frustrated with Washington. And I believe that until we elect new people, people who don't engage in name calling, who don't engage in lying about their opponents, until we elect new people, that kind of culture will prevail. And I believe we need a culture change. And so I'm going to run again. I always like to say I'm going to run this race with integrity and grit. We're almost there.
All right, Tedra, my final question for you. President Donald Trump earlier this morning announced on Twitter that he and the First Lady, Melania Trump, have both tested positive for COVID-19. With the recent positive tests coming out of local schools such as Whitehall, how do you feel we are handling this virus, and what do you think needs to change, if anything at all?
Well, I wish for the president and for the other several million people who have been infected with this virus a speedy recovery, first and foremost. Now, we still have not seen a realistic and consistent federal response to the coronavirus. And we learned through the Woodward tapes that the president knew how dangerous this virus was and underplayed it. He was not honest with the American people. So I think that has put us behind. We need to put science first, public health first, not politics, but public health and people's safety. That's what we need to do to move forward. So we need to make sure that everyone has rapid testing, and we need to make sure that we have contact tracing and we have PPE so that our schools can remain open and students can learn, and we keep our teachers and our families safe and our students safe. And also, we need to make sure that we can keep our businesses open. As you probably drive around Northern New York, you see lots of those signs that say, wear a mask, keep business open. I think it's partly about caring for ourselves and our families, but it's also about caring for our community and helping us all get through this very difficult time and keep our businesses open and keep our schools open so that kids can learn and so that parents can keep working. But again, I'm going to circle back and say, we need a federal response that is realistic and consistent and is based in the science and public health.
My final question is, voting's already begun around the state. How do you think the presumable increase in absentee and early voting is going to affect the outcome?
Well, I am always for voter enfranchisement. I would love to see 100% turnout always in every election. I'm somebody who ran for local office and came through local office. So I'm hoping that people who feel that they want to vote from home will get an absentee ballot. And I'm excited that they're able to do that. If they can and they want to do early voting, October 24th is the beginning of early voting. And I hope that people might avail themselves of that. And then on election day, I think New York has done a really good job in giving everybody every opportunity to vote. And I am hoping that we have a record-breaking turnout, not only this year, but every year. Elections matter, voting matters. That's what makes this country so fantastic, that we can vote. And so I'm hoping that we just have an amazing turnout this year and every year.
Okay, now for my final question here, Tedra. What was your reaction to the first presidential debate on Tuesday night?
Well, I respect anyone who can make it through that sort of chaos. To me, it was unfortunate. And again, we didn't get to hear about the crucial issues that are facing American families. We didn't get to hear equally from both the candidates. And that is was unfortunate about that debate. And then I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I hope that we'll be able to have future debates and we'll be able to hear from both of those candidates.
Tedra, I guess just the last thing to ask you is there anything that we haven't covered in detail enough or any other issue that you would like to describe for the benefit of our readers and our viewers?
Well, I think one of the issues that is really important in this district is Fort Drum. And I know you're on the other side of New York 21, but Fort Drum is important in this district. We learned months ago that Russia had put bounties on the lives of American soldiers. And this Congresswoman, Elise Stefanik, has said nothing. It is a matter of national security. Elise Stefanik has said nothing. The president has said nothing. When we learned that the president, in the Atlantic article, called our fallen soldiers suckers and losers, Elise Stefanik said nothing. That is not what a congressperson should do. That we deserve someone who will fight for the people, the men and women who are putting their lives on the line for us every day. And I will have their backs, and I want them to know that. I will never put politics first or my loyalty to someone before our troops. And we also learned in and amongst all of this that Elise Stefanik was missing from Intelligence Committee meetings. Remember, she sits on the Armed Services Committee, the Intelligence Committee. She's the ranking member of Emerging Threats, and yet she was missing from key Intelligence Committee meetings. If she can't do her job, she doesn't deserve her job. We deserve someone who is going to be here and fight for us every single day. I will do that.
Tedra, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today. And we wish you the best of luck, and we'll see what happens on Election Day.
Well, I thank you. I'm honored that you managed the Zoom call and the technology where you can teach old dogs new tricks. So thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful and honored.